Welcome to the Wrestling Universe channel. My name is Cosk. I am joined by Y2 Wrestling, and today we are going to be reviewing the 3rd August 2023 edition of Impact Wrestling. Y2 will be taking the perspective of a new fan. He is filling in for Hakeem. He does know the wrestlers. He knows what he's talking about, but like the stories is a bit not current with. So this is coming from an experienced Impact fan and someone who's tuning in for the first time in a while.
Yeah, no, just to be honest, I don't really watch Impact Wrestling. I haven't watched it for a while, but I watched it tonight for the review, and I guess I'll give it my best shot to give a good review of it.
And we kick off with a name who has become synonymous with Impact for the past month or two, arguably their biggest name. Let's just get right into it. Trinity comes out, she comes to the ring, and she's like, this is the building that I made my debut in. And I promised I would become the Knockouts champion. Her words, not mine. I'm not promising anything. And, the crowd's all for it. They're cheering, they're chanting, they're big fans of Trinity. She gets the best reaction of the show, arguably. Deonna Purazzo would come out. Deonna would say, hey, if we want to remake your debut, I have to come out, right? That's what happened in your debut, which was kind of true. Jordan also came out, and she's not here anymore, but I digress. So they're talking, kind of throwing shots at each other. Deonna calls her a quitter. The fans start chanting, you tapped out to Deonna, and Trinity says, you hear them. So like hate between them while also being good guys.
And I viewed that as a little bit of more inside baseball in terms of the way those two exited WWE.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, like, Trinity, they brought it up quite a few times about how she left WWE, but at the same time, they're not like building her up as ex-WWE star, they're building her up as major star, but they just like bring it up occasionally to throw in a few shots,
Yeah, like, oh yeah, you quit it, but I didn't give up. I got fired. You know what I mean? That type of deal.
Although quitting would probably be better for reputation-wise. I digress. Names who have never been in the WWE, there's a segue. The Coven come out, and they're like... It was kind of weird because they mentioned how... Or Kylan mentioned how Trinity's first match back was against the Coven. But then, as the crowd and Trinity then said, the Coven lost, so why is she mentioning it? But, like, things get heated between them, I guess. And then a brawl happens, the Coven attack Trinity, Deonna gets involved. They get, like, split apart. Santino Marella, who's the director of Authority, comes out and makes the match official for later. But Deonna says, no, I want this match now.
Yeah, I don't need my gear.
Yeah, they wrestled in their, like, normal clothes. Trinity had, like, a wacky costume on.
Yeah, Trinity, I can see her wrestling in that anyway.
Yeah, Deonna, like... We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later when we get to the match, but... yeah, I mean... So a match is made official for right now. We're gonna get into this segment first, and we'll talk about the match. What did you think of this segment? First segment back for you in a while with Impact. Do you think it, like, started to show off with the right tone?
Yeah, I guess you could say it started in the right tone. It was hyping up the match coming up on the Resurgence
Emergence.
show. Oh, Emergence, not Resurgence. But so I mean, yes, it's setting the stage. I mean, I know Deonna's been built as the franchise of the Knockouts division. If anything, that's something Impact deserves to be praised for, is taking risks on a talent like Deonna and really building her up to be a franchise player and a star, giving her that chance. And obviously Trinity, the bigger name of the two, is she was in on the main roster, SmackDown Women's Champion and such in WWE. So I mean, they're hyping it up as this, big match. I mean, it definitely set the stage. I mean, seeing the Covenant come out, it was a bit strange. I mean, I recognize Killing King from AEW Dark. I've seen her multiple times on there, and I mean, her logic. I mean, I get it, and then I don't. It's a bit weird. It's like, if it would have went a little bit differently, I would have been, champ. Which I mean is definitely a story direction you can go. It is a bit of a strange route, but and then the pull apart brawl. I don't know if security was necessary. To be honest, I think it's a bit overdone. Like just have them fight and then be like, Santino be like, stop, make this into a match. But yeah, no, I thought. Yeah, I guess to circle back to what your question was. Yeah, I think it set the stage well for the show and I guess the upcoming pay-per-view.
Impact has a smaller like live audience than like other shows we talk about. But whenever Trinity comes out, you can always hear them really well. It's like there could be like, let's say, I don't know, 1,000 people in there, and it feels like there's 3,000 because of how passionate they are for Trinity. She's arguably the face of the company right now, other than Josh Alexander, who I consider the ace. And yeah, I think this was a good segment to start off the show. The Coven. When this match happened, my first thought was the Coven taking another L. They've been losing quite a bit on Impact. But that was not the direction we went in because, I mean, let's get into the match. What did you think of the action in the match? What do you think? First time seeing Kyle and King in a while, first time seeing Taylor Wilds, maybe ever. What did you, first time seeing Deonna in a while, first time seeing Trinity in a while, what did you think of this match overall?
Yeah, no, I thought it was decent stuff. I think Deonna's, really good. Some of the stuff she was doing, the Hurricane Rana her food. I remember her Fujiwara armbar. So I mean, she definitely has a presence. I mean, in terms of the storytelling of the match, I mean, it was a when I say decent match, I liked it. I wasn't like crazy about it or anything, but I felt like it moved things along. The general story that both Trinity, I'm fighting the urge to say Naomi because I still have to get used to it a little bit. But Deonna and Trinity not quite on the same page. Deonna tagging herself in. Trinity by accident hitting Deonna. But yeah, decent stuff in terms of action. So I guess what did you think of the opener?
It's a how they will they coexist storyline, which I'm not a big fan of. It's a very much this show opened up with a WWE trope type segment, in my opinion. Whereas I think what Impact specializes in most, and what we've seen happen in AEW and other companies, and what I prefer personally with my wrestling is, you kick off with an exciting match, maybe X Division wrestlers, and you kind of segue there. I think this was a good way to open the show, but feels like a WWE trope, the big segment between the challengers and this heel team to kind of give them a how will they coexist match. The authority figure comes out and it's made. So I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not I'm not hating it or anything. It's not like how dare you Scott D'Amore. It's just a weak. This was a very filler episode of Impact in my opinion, and it moved the story along just fine. It's quite hard to do a face versus face, especially when you have your two biggest stars in a rematch nonetheless, so you don't really have the aura to go off it. It was a good match. Deonna was slightly slow because she wasn't in her wrestling gear, but I still feel like she is so good that it didn't really matter. Trinity was wrestling perfectly with the gear on, as you said. I feel like that could just be her regular gear and it would really look off anyways. Taylor Wilde's a legend in this company. Kylan King is great. So, I'm a fan of this. The finish, however, which was Trinity kicking Deonna in the head and then the Coven getting the win, was not a big fan of. I could see you shaking your head. I don't think you were a fan of it either.
Yeah, no, I was definitely surprised because he's got the promoting a title match that's happening in 3 weeks, and you have the challenger get pinned in this tag team match. I wasn't a fan of that because I feel like that weakens the title match. I mean, I guess if you want to justify the finish, I guess maybe you add Kyle and King and then make it a triple threat, and then punt Purazzo versus Trinity down the road into I guess some other Impact pay per view like maybe or show like maybe Impact 1000 and you do the triple threat uh, on that show. But if not, I mean it was a pretty baffling finish in my opinion.
I didn't hate it completely because on the one hand, you have these two singles wrestlers versus this tag team, and the Coven have been taking a lot of losses, so I feel like they needed a win, but at the same time, just don't book the match if that's the case, you know? Like, I feel like this match shouldn't have been booked. I get that you need to fill up airtime, but I mean, they lost last week, now you're playing them this week. Not every week has to be a match between them. You can find someone else to have a match. I mean, you can just have the promo segment. Maybe instead of a match, you could segue into a fun X Division match. Maybe like Black Taurus versus someone, for example. This is just my excuse to get Black Taurus on TV. Wait, he'll be on next week, I think.
He'll be fighting Bully Ray, 6-man action.
That's Kalisto's debut too. Samurai Del Sol.
Yeah, Samurai, Laredo, and Bruce.
Yeah, so like overall decent, but not like anything special. And there was a bit of weird booking decisions overall. I think personally, if they did things a bit differently, I would have enjoyed this more. If it was just a promo segment, maybe Kyle and King's reasons could have been a bit different. Just like this had the recipe of something that could have been really good, and I feel like it just came off okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I guess a positive that you can take out of the opening segment and the opening match is that WWE and AEW have been getting criticism for their women's divisions and not giving them enough time and allowing them to shine. I mean, Impact definitely gave their knockouts time to shine tonight. The first 30 minutes of the show, opening segment and opening match.
Absolutely, I think that's what Impact does best, the Knockouts division. I think that's the reason Trinity decided to go to Impact in the first place. But nonetheless, I don't know if I'm going to segue from Knockouts to the Rascalz, but we'll try our best. The Rascalz would have a promo. That was not a segue, that was just a transition. And yeah, they'd be like kind of talking about how they're gonna like how their actions in their recent weeks, throwing popcorn at Speedball, interfering in the match with Speedball, and costing ABC. And then the other authority figure, and the main one, I suppose, Scott D'Amore would come out, the official owner of the company, I believe. Yeah. Like, he's the person and people in charge of the president. He came out and he told them that for their actions they would be suspended, not suspended like not showing up, but suspended in terms of financially, because they would be getting no pay for the next 2 weeks, which, I mean, I guess that's a reason. I mean, it's a fine reason if you don't want to move the ball along crazily, but I don't see why the fans would care about wrestlers not getting paid kayfabe-wise,
Yeah, no, when Scott D'Amore said that, it felt out of pocket. I mean, there's cheating all throughout pro wrestling to specifically punish the Rascalz by taking away their pay. I felt was, I guess, a bit harsh. It's not like they're the only ones.
To be fair, Impact tends to be one of the more realistic promotions, I suppose, in the sense that it's really funny saying that about the promotion with undead people and a man coming back from the dead, but when it comes to like the wrestling, like the actual wrestling, they're quite like the way the Rascalz have acted. You would expect repercussions because Scott D'Amore specifically told them you have to leave the building, and then they showed up anyways. So that's something I liked.
Yeah, or also, I don't know exactly, but you could argue that Jonathan Gresham is putting pressure on Scott D'Amore to have the rules enforced more efficiently, as I saw in the promo later that we'll get to. Is Gresham's always been more of a stickler for the rules when he was in Ring of Honor. Like I remember, the pure division. It was like if you interfered in a pure match during that time, you would get fired from the company. Like the rules were very strict.
I'll talk more about that later, but that is something I have a lot to say about, in a positive way. But nonetheless, this was a fine promo. The more says that while they are not going to get paid, they will still be in the tournament because they're great professional wrestlers and the fans love to see them wrestle. So, move the ball along. Just a fine reason to give them repercussions for kind of not going with the Moore's word, because like the reason why I feel like that's important is I remember a WWE show, like the Usos, I believe, got like told by the ref they have to go backstage. Like he directed them, and then they just showed up at the end of the match anyways, and no one acknowledged it. I was like, oh yeah, they can do what they want. They're the bloodline. And I don't like that. I feel like that disrespects the referees. I feel like that disrespects the management. So if you tell wrestlers, hey, you can't be here, and they show up anyways, you have to have some repercussion. The fact that it's pay, I mean, it's fine if you don't want to like suspend them or anything. I get it, but
it just reminds me. Wasn't it like one time Charlotte Flair got fined like $1 million?
WWE tends to exaggerate the amounts they find people in storyline. But I digress. We move on to an Alicia Edwards and Eddie Edwards promo. They're talking about Tracy Brooks and Frankie Kazarian. Alicia's talking about how Tracy's a coward and Tracy doesn't want to face her, so she left the company. And then Jody Tress comes out to stand up for Tracy Brooks. Calls Tracy Brooks a legend in this company, which, she is the original Knockout alongside the likes of Gail Kim. So yeah, they make a match official for next week. What did you think of this segment overall? And what do you think about the potential of what seems to be setting up Tracy and Frankie versus Eddie and Alicia, I would assume?
As for the segment, I mean, to be honest, I did not really know what was going on. But, as for, but, I thought it, just move things along, So I thought in that sense it was fine. As for the match, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that doesn't sound particularly intriguing to me. Granted, I don't believe I've ever seen a Tracy Brooks match, so I don't know if that would be an intriguing prospect or not. I mean, I like Kazarian, and so I mean, maybe who knows? Maybe that would end up being good or good. I don't know.
Eddie Edwards and that match is very much a spectacle match to me if it does happen, because you don't know the lore of Tracy Brooks, I don't think, but Tracy Brooks was the original Knockout in the company. Like, it was Tracy, it was Gail Kim. They were kind of the first Knockout to really pave the way alongside Awesome Kong, for example. So she's a legend in this company. Will the action be good between Alicia, who is not particularly known for being a ring general, and Tracy Brooks? I don't think so. But when you have Eddie Edwards and Frankie Kazarian in there, they can kind of take care of the in-ring work. Maybe have Eddie Edwards work on Frankie throughout the match. He gets that hot tag in, Tracy Brooks comes out. They have a bit of a stare down. Then Tracy Brooks goes after Alicia Edwards. I feel like it could be some fun stuff. Maybe even go a direction of Eddie and Alicia versus Davey versus Frankie and Tracy in a similar match to the Davey and Angelina Love match that Eddie and Alicia had. I'm gonna move on now to a match. Probably, I would say, the most upset I've been since reviewing this show. Alan Angels versus Heath. What did you think of the match, and more importantly, what did you think of the finish?
The match, I guess it was, I'd say fine to pretty good. I enjoy Alan Angels. I saw him, from the first time, he was on Dynamite against Kenny Omega, and then, that match obviously caused controversy because Omega allowed Angels to do, and then Angels, he's, really underrated talent, so, I'm glad he's getting some spotlight here on Impact. But as for the finish, it was like so Angels, went for the backslide. Then Heath kicked out and did the like kind of like a zigzag for the win, which I could not believe that Heath like won. I don't know. I don't even know everything with Impact, but it just doesn't feel like a smart decision, especially from my understanding, I know that Violence by Design is no longer a faction, and Angels has this new heel gimmick that yeah, I think's only been going on for like a few weeks or whatever, and then he just loses to Heath like this. I mean, why should anybody take Alan Angel seriously? And that's a sad thing to say. I don't know what Heath gains from this victory. It's I don't know. I think it's a bad finish in terms of who won.
Yeah, it was a good match. Alan Angels is an incredible wrestler. I have been talking about him for a while. I'm a big fan of Alan Angels. The design, they changed their name from VBD to the design once Cody Deaner took over. They're still a faction, but Alan Angels did leave the faction, and well, it does seem like it's nearing its end with the Eric Young story, but we'll get to that later. It's not really, actually, it's not really a faction anymore. It's more of a two-man thing, just Cody Deaner and his big man. So you have a point there, but yeah, after Angels left the faction and like pretty much ended it as a faction, at least for now, I expected big things from him. The way they were presenting him was really good. Probably the best. I would say it was the best presentation he's had in his career thus far, because he was always kind of, other than the Omega match, he was always kind of a faction guy. He was the Dark Order's other hand. He was the Design's, good wrestler. But now he's finally standing up on his own. He had his own gimmick. He had a good promo last week. He has a good aura about him. And he loses to Heath, who, no disrespect to Heath, I have been very positive about the likes of Brian Myers, Dirty Dango, and he's not in the company anymore, but Matt Cardona, because these guys, they came into Impact, but they weren't dependent on their WWE personalities. Like Dango, he's doing this cool thing with the with these like weird vignette promos and hating professional wrestling, and he's in it for the money. Matt Cardona's doing fantastic work on D&Ds. Brian Myers, I feel like, is doing great work. I feel like he's really becoming a serious, good mid-card to even sometimes upper mid-card heel. But Heath is just Heath. He's doing the same thing with Rhino. He's kind of doing this Target gimmick where he just like goes after someone who he thinks is a dick. I don't know. I mean, do they have plans for Heath? Maybe. I would assume they have plans for Heath, unless maybe there's going to be like a TV series where Alan Angels gets done win, and then they have like a rubber match where Alan Angels wins. But at the same time, I don't want to see Alan Angels versus Heath 3 times. So, not a fan of the finish. I think Alan Angels deserves... Alan Angels, I think after the design, was really set for something special. People thought he was going to win the Ultimate X. He didn't. People thought this was a match to give Alan Angels a win. He didn't win. And after that fantastic match he had against Jonathan Gresham, I really expected something more. So I am disappointed.
Yeah, especially since with his character work, I feel like when I saw him come out, he felt that presence that I feel like he's been lacking from when I watched him with the sunglasses, the really coming into his own as a solo heel. And I don't know, I think Heath winning just kind of cuts the legs from under him.
I mean, Impact does present Heath as like a fairly serious person. So like, I don't think there's like end of the world, Alan Angels pushes over Doom, Alan Angels should leave Impact, all of that. I think he's still going to get a good push. I still think he's an eventual X Division champion. But I'm a big fan of wins and losses mattering, and I think that this is a bad choice. Where it goes, we'll see. Maybe they have justification for it. Maybe Heat's in line for a big push, which I wouldn't be very interested in, if I'm being honest. But hey, let this play out, I suppose. And
Heath versus Bully Ray.
Speaking of letting it play out, we have an Eric Young promo next. Eric Young he talks about how he essentially survived from the dead, for lack of a better term. Like, he was seen getting stabbed on TV and then he just kind of came back. And something I do like, Impact's not gonna like just pretend, yeah, that never happened while Eric Young's back. They did say, hey, we will see. I have footage. I don't know how he got footage, but he has footage of what happened, so we're gonna see that later on. I will talk about that more later, but overall, I don't think there's much to say about this, just kind of teasing what's to come, you know? After this, we get one of my favorite things on the show, which is kind of saying something, considering the fact that, you know, it was an enhancement match, but I think it just talks to how highly regarded Jake Something is to me. We have a Jake Something versus whoever match. I don't really know the name of the guy. What did you think of the presentation of Jake Something? There's not really much to say about the match, but the way they're presenting him.
Yeah, it was something that I wasn't expecting, because the last time I saw Jake Something, he wasn't like, you know, that over. I mean, I know there wasn't fans, but he didn't really, you know, it didn't really have a big spot on the card, or was like viewed like very important by the fans. But this squash, he definitely felt like he had a lot of momentum with, you know, saying "What's my name?" and then, you know, people chanting something. You know, Vader, he like the colliding into him. Just, you know, complete dominant win. And the presentation I thought was much improved from when I last saw him.
I don't know if you know Jake Something lore, but he was someone who was always beloved by like the Impact hardcore fans. And he would, after doing the Cousin Jake thing, he would get this singles run. People really wanted it. He would kind of struggle in that role. He'd be a bit directionless at times. He was really coming into his own. At the time, he would have X Division title matches. He had a great one with Josh Alexander, and he had a great one with Trey Miguel. But after that Trey Miguel one, he would leave the company. He would come back, slam.
I remember he had a match on AEW Dark.
Oh yeah, he did have a few AEW appearances. He had a few New Japan.
I think he faced like Jay Lethal, I think, or something.
That sounds like a great match.
You can see it on YouTube.
Promo.
YouTube.com.
Advertise us, AEW, please. So yeah, Jake Something. He's a great talent, in my opinion. The way they've been presenting him since Slammiversary, which is when he returned, has been phenomenal. He had a great show in that Slammiversary. He had a great match with Kevin Knight. He had a great promo after, like this vignette explaining the lore behind his name, because if you're a new fan to Jake Something, you're like, why is he called Jake Something? And he explained this last week, saying, people used to regard me as nothing, but I showed them I am something. I am Jake Something, which I thought was a great reason. And now this, a dominant win. He's a very good striker. Like, some of his hits look like he killed the poor guy. I feel like Jake Something's in line for a big push. The way they've been presenting him is like they know what they have with him now. It's been reported he signed some sort of a deal. We don't know how long, but I get the vibe that he's here for the long term if they're presenting him this well. I mean, honestly, I'm not going to say world championship because I feel like there's a lot of people who are in line before him, the likes of Chris Bay, Ace Austin, you know, those type of guys. But Jake Something, I think, would be a great X Division champion alongside the likes of Alan Angels. In my opinion, Impact would start to move out the likes of Mike Bailey, Jonathan Gresham, or maybe keep Gresham in because he's doing something really special right now. But move some guys out of the X Division, like they have with Trey, like I think they should do with Bailey, and move in new people like Alan Angels, like Jake Something. But yeah, I mean,
like Joe Hendry.
Don't think he would work in the X Division, but I'm a big Hendry fan. Do you believe?
I will get into that in a bit, but I do believe.
You believe. That's great to hear. And Joe Hendry should just win all the titles like Kurt Angle in his peak. We move on to a promo. Lio Rush is on the phone and he's confronted by Bully Ray, Moose, and Brian Myers. They're like all being buddy with him, talking about how they're so glad he made the right decision. Lio Rush is like, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to win titles. I'm here to be my own man. And they're kind of doing the buddy thing while also being threatening. Like, they're like, hey, we have a 6-man tag next week. I want you to be in our corner. Overall, I would have to say Bully Ray, while I'm not really a big fan of his in-ring work, I will say I think Bully Ray gets too much hate for his actual work, content of work. His matches, he's not... I don't want to see a Bully Ray singles match for the life of me, but the matches he's had, he's been like protected fairly well in the ring, where the big matches he has are like the Josh Alexander one, which I think was great because it was just chaos everywhere, tables, ladders, overbooking, TNA. Like, they're very TNA matches. He had a big multi-man match. And he's a great promo. Like, he's one of the best promos in the business, in my opinion. I think he does a fantastic job. He's one of the best heels in the business. Personally, I think he should be a manager rather than a wrestler. I think he would be much more effective as a manager, in my opinion. Other than that, Lio Rush, I think his presentation and Impact has been so well. We keep using the word presentation. I feel like this is a company where people can like flow their creative juices, like show what they're really made of. And Lio Rush, they've pushed him. They brought him in. They had him squash Chris Sabin essentially in a concussion story. He won the X Division title. He's teasing a world title cash in with the option C, so like they're pushing him all the way. I'm very interested to see where it goes. But overall, what did you think of it?
Yeah, no, I thought it moved things along. Bully Ray, Moose, and Myers, they at least feel like they had at least some chemistry. Like, they hang out, I guess, in some capacity. I don't know what they would be doing when they hang out.
Okay.
Well, but Bully Ray, he was a bit. I feel like he was a bit extra in this, bit over the top, which is not necessarily a bad thing in this segment. He's like, oh, his press. I'm like, who are you talking to? Like, I just thought he was being a little bit extra, which I didn't hate either, but I just that was. But between this and the video package that they did for someone who hasn't seen the show or maybe missed a few weeks, I think it was just nice catching up on what's been happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they didn't have a big focus on this. I think the reason this episode felt so filler is because they didn't have a big focus on this. I feel like that and the fact they have so many big shows coming up, so they didn't have a lot of big matches because they have Impact 1000, they have Emergence, they still have to build.
They have the bell tolls for whom?
That's
August 20th, right? Fight TV.
That's Multiverse United. That's the catchphrase for the show, and that's their
but like, that's like technically the name of the show.
Multiverse United. How the bells tone or room.
No, it's Multiverse United 2. The bell tolls for whom?
That's essentially their Forbidden Door.
Yeah, the name's a bit much. You probably can cut out the bell tolls for whom, but that feels like a very GCW-esque thing. GCW usually has some interesting show name choices.
Nonetheless, we move on. Joe Hendry versus Yuya Uemera versus Kenny K-I-N-G King. I almost messed it up, but I caught myself. What did you think of this match? What did you think of the finish? And what do you think of Joe Hendry specifically?
So yeah, this was my favorite part of the show. If I had to, I guess I'll go into a little story here. With the first time I ever saw Impact, I just randomly turned on, because I guess there was wrestling on, and it was Joe Hendry and Grado, and Henry was like singing about platonic love, and I admittedly I enjoyed Henry's singing, so I mean I didn't end up watching the rest of the show or watching it back after that, but so Henry, I like his charisma and the whole gimmick. I guess I just saw it for the first time tonight, but I do believe in Joe Hendry. Uh, and then as for the other guys, I mean, Yuya Uemura. I mean, this is the first I've seen a lot of Uemura, but more as a young lion, like with the black trunks. He can only hit certain moves. Like he was only able to do like a drop kick, Boston crab, butterfly suplex. He was very limited. So to see him now, I think he's developed a lot of charisma that he didn't have before. More with his persona, the way he even posed with the camera. And then Kenny King, I think is an underrated talent during his time in ROH and even Impact. So yeah, and then as for the match, I enjoyed it. It was probably my as I said before, my favorite of the night. Uh, Uemura crossbody. My favorite spot of the match was when Henry was doing his chops and incorporating his theme song. I thought it was really creative. It's like chop chop. I believe in Joe Henry. I was hoping it would continue, but it got cut off after a bit. But and then Kenny King, his catchphrase King. I thought just the charisma. I thought it was a fun little match, and the match finished with what was it? So Henry goes for the pin, but then King, somebody pulled Henry out of the ring, and then King steals by hitting the fireman's carry cutter, the royal flush for the pin. As for the finish, I mean, I guess it makes sense. It could even lead to a tag team match if they haven't done already.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Yuya Uemura. I feel like there's been rumors. I don't know. I've never seen a big site report them, so these aren't confirmed. But especially with the Reiwa Three Musketeers being made in New Japan, there's a lot of rumors that Yuya could be sticking around in Impact. That he might not go back to New Japan. That he likes the way Impact is, the American schedule. And if that's the case, I feel like this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for Impact. I feel like Yuya Uemura has a freakish amount of momentum, potential. Like he could be like a major star here. I feel like in another world he would be a part of the Three Musketeers. So I feel like Impact should utilize him. I think what they're doing with him right now is fine. He's still quite young. They don't have to immediately push him to the world title scene. I don't think he's ready for that. But slowly build up his fan presence, and I feel like he can be a huge hit for you. Like a future world champion, 2-3 years down the line if he sticks around that long. Overall, solid match. Love a good triple threat. Joe Hendry, fantastic. Probably one of my favorites in the company. He has so much charisma. His in-ring style is really unique because you just see him kind of incorporate his character into it. He does a lot of throws, a lot of big power moves in a world of flippy, high-flying wrestling being the dominant force, or technical wrestling has made a bit of a resurgence, but you don't see power moves from a guy who isn't a massive heavyweight anymore, at least from what I observe. So it was fun. Kenny King, right winner in my opinion. He only just won the title. I feel like Yuya was in here to take the loss because I feel Impact is ready to move Joe Hendry up to the main event scene. I think they took the digital media title off him to move him up to that main event scene, to have him go after that world title eventually. I don't know when, because I feel like you can't do a face versus face with the type of character Joe Hendry has, but once a heel holds that title, Joe Hendry will be the one to dethrone them, in my opinion.
I guess just based off what I saw tonight, I could imagine a Joe Hendry versus Jonathan Gresham type match where Gresham's super serious, don't break the rules or anything, and then Henry's singing, and it just pisses Gresham off to ever living hell.
Speaking of Gresham, thank you for that segue. We move on to a Gresham and Bailey promo. Gresham talking about how if you're going to be in this tournament with anyone, he's glad it's with Mike Bailey. But Bailey's like, I had to convince you to be my partner. Talking about this interview a few weeks ago where he was like, saying maybe this company isn't for him because there's no rules in the X division. And yeah, I mean, they kind of walk off to say, you do your thing, I do mine. This was a really interesting segment to me. Gresham is one of my favorites in the company too. Like, he's up there top 10 alongside Hendry. I feel like he's been really directionless in Impact. He's been doing fun stuff with Bailey, but that's about it. And since it's pure rules type tease, I feel like there's a lot of potential for maybe a Doug Williams type run where he holds that X Division title and enforces rules. So I feel like when we're talking about lots of people who could be X Division champion, I feel like he's next in line. I mean, after the person who dethrones Leo Rush. I feel like Leo Rush is gonna cash in option C. And I feel like Gresham will win a tournament to become the champion by beating Mike Bailey in the finals. That's my prediction. And I feel he could do a lot of great work with that title. Jonathan Gresham, like as a heel, I think works much better as a baby face. So yeah, pretty good stuff. Gresham and Bailey, talking about rules, talking about how Bailey got kind of cheated out of a win, and I mean, this promo was really just to set up what happened in the main event and to set up like heat between Gresham and not just Bailey but the entire company later on, like in the weeks to come. But I'll hand the ball over to you. What did you think of the segment?
Yeah, I liked it. I was intrigued by the direction for Jonathan Gresham in the future. I enjoyed him in Ring of Honor with the Foundation, with him, Lethal, Tracy Williams, and Rhett Titus is this, heel faction. So for him to channel that energy, which is, are pretty much, in my opinion, the best run of his career, I think, is definitely an exciting route to go. And he could do a lot in Impact with that character.
Yeah. We move on to the segment we talked about earlier, the Team Josh versus Team Bully hype / promo. Josh Alexander, so happy to see him back, by the way. He's one of my, I talk about favorites in Impact, he's one of my favorites in the world, top 5 easily. I've been a big Josh Alexander fan for a while. Y2 knows this. But yeah, he is talking about how he's not surprised by Leo's choice. He's like a father in the sense that he's like, I'm not surprised, I'm disappointed, But yeah, I think he did a really good job of moving along the story, just kind of not moving along the story, they didn't really add anything of note, but it's like catching people up to the story, like you, for example. And yeah, it was pretty well produced. It makes me more excited to see a feud between them. I feel like they've been building the story up really well. It's the A story in Impact. And my god, what a team Josh Alexander, the Motor City Machine Guns, and Kushida is. I hand the ball over to you now.
Yeah, no, the segment, is nice catching up. As for the team, the Time Splitters, it is, a great tag team. Shelly, I remember he showed up on NXT once. That was for the Dusty Cup. A very random shout, by the way. But yeah, no, I think that team does sound like it'd be an amazing team.
Speaking of amazing teams, I don't really think they're an amazing team, but they're a good team. I just wanted to do the segue, okay? We move on to...
It's a little forced segue.
We move on to Courtney Rush and Havoc. They're backstage, and they're like, there's a Knockouts tag title match without us, and they're like furious. They're doing their like arm-on-arm thing, which is like a gimmick they do. And then Crazy Steve comes in and he's like, I don't know why Rosemary gave you control, but I need to talk to you. And then she's like, I would, but I can't. And they walk off, and then Crazy Steve is like upset about it, but not like that upset. I think that's the best description of it. I'm not really a big fan of the wacky stuff in Impact, but I digress. I'm going to hand the ball over to you. What did you think of it?
Yeah. So this is another one of those segments where I was just confused. You just said crazy Steve. I had no clue who that guy was when he showed up, but um, yeah, no. So from my understanding, it's Rosemary, right? She's just dressed up as somebody else, right?
Yeah, she went to the undead realm and she came out of it, and then she lost her Rosemary gimmick.
All right. I guess uh, that's certainly something. I mean, I thought, regardless, I thought she had a little bit of charisma in this whatever form she had. It was nice to see her in a different role. I don't know exactly where that would go or understanding the story. Do you think it leads to them getting another knockouts title match? Tag.
Nakatagi. Yeah, I could see it. I mean,
You
I
think
feel
they'll
like
be
it,
added to the match at Resurgence? Make it a three-way?
maybe to avoid Giselle Shaw
Oh,
and
Emergence.
maybe to avoid Giselle Shaw and Samantha Evans taking the loss if they want to continue that. Although MK Ultra versus Rush and Havoc would be a pretty interesting feud, I think their characters would work really well together. Especially, I think that could lead to the return of Rosemary. I feel like the only reason Impact are doing this, which is a valid reason, is Rosemary was a bit stale in Impact. She's been there for a very long time. She's been there since the K days with Crazy Steve and Abyss. So yeah, I mean, they wanted to freshen up her character. They did. I think they've done a good job of that. Am I a fan of how wacky it is? No, but I know there's an audience for it, so I'm not going to say it's blasphemous or anything. Like it was fairly decent, but not like my cup of tea. Is where I would go with it.
Okay, so one more thing. It has just caught on to me at this point in the podcast that Resurgence. The reason it's in my head is that was in New Japan Strong pay per view. So they have
Remember?
similar names. So that's the mistake I'm making.
Oh, okay. I see. I see.
Yeah, Resurgence. I think last year it was uh, it was Lance Archer versus Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Tanahashi won the IWGP US belt. I think that was 2 years ago, but that's the show I'm thinking of.
Yeah. We move on from the IWGP US title to the beautiful people. What a segue. Um, so yeah, the beautiful people of Velvet Sky and Angelina Love, no Madison Rain because she's with AEW. They were announced for the show. So was Awesome
Plus,
Kong.
Rain is injured, I think.
Oh yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Awesome Kong was also announced for the show, which was really cool to see. So I'm a fan of this. I've been a big advocate for them bringing back the Legends for one-offs for the 1000th episode, and I got goosebumps would be a strong word, but I got fairly excited when I saw that Awesome Kong was going to come back. Like even if it's not a match, there's some interactions you could have with the roster. You could have I wish Jordan Grace was still here because Jordan Grace versus Awesome Kong and an interaction would be fantastic. But I digress. I feel like you could still have maybe Awesome Kong confront Samantha Evans, for example. Maybe bring back a bit of that aura that Samantha Evans used to have.
Yeah, or maybe Awesome Kong and Trinity or Deonna Purazzo.
Could always work. Maybe Awesome Kong talking to them about the legend, about maybe talking to Trinity about what that title means to her, and how she needs to, how she's proud that she's keeping the legacy up.
Yeah.
But, yeah, pretty exciting stuff. I know you're not a big watcher of Impact, but do you have any predictions of who else could be announced for this show? Just free agents who are synonymous with the company, really, or people maybe even in AEW who could show up due to their friendly relationship with Tony Khan. Maybe even in New Japan if there's people.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it. I mean, if Nick Aldis, I know Aldis literally just left, but I mean, if he's still a free agent by that point, maybe show up, do something on the show. I don't know. As for old TNA guys, Chris Daniels could always be a guy that if they could work that out with AEW, let him come over because I know he has a history and impact, especially with the X Division. Yeah, Jeff Jarrett. I mean, if you're just listening, got some guys from AEW that I can see, I don't know, going over to Impact. I'd have to, think about, the Impact Legends. I mean, I guess they could. I was gonna say Ric Flair. I guess I don't know.
I
No,
don't think.
probably not Flair.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think
I'm
I'm about
sure. I'm sure they'll find some people, some legacy Impact talent.
James Storm and Amazing Brother are the two who come to mind to me. James Storm.
Yeah, oh, yeah, James Storm. That's a good shout.
Maybe I don't know if there would be James Storm with Chris Harris or James Storm by himself, but I think James Storm definitely showing up. I think he could even have a match. I feel like the match at the main event of Impact 1000 should be an Impact OGs versus Impact Newborn, or not Newborn, but like just the new generation of Impact, where it could be like the Motor City Machine Guns, James Storm, and Frankie Kazarian. Maybe even ask Christopher Daniels in there versus names like ABC, Chris Bane, Ace Austin. Um, who else? ABC.
Uemura.
I don't think Humor is at that level yet, but like more like Impact homegrowns like ABC. I don't think Trey McGaw would work because he has Heat with them, but Josh Alexander would work pretty well.
Jake something maybe.
Oh,
Jake something.
Jake something would work, I think. Yeah, I think Jake something would work. Maybe not really a homegrown, but I think they're pushing. No, not really a rush. Mike Bailey, maybe Mike Bailey would work. Maybe Jonathan Gresham. He's not on a homegrown necessarily, but like he's a big star there.
Yeah, Joe Hendry.
Joe Hendry's a great shout, but like just like these OGs versus these new guys, I feel like that could be a really good match. I feel like Impact 1000 is going to be a great show in general. Like this historic show for Impact. I feel like that's the reason we got like a filler episode tonight, just because they're building up to Impact 1000.
Yeah, hopefully they don't hold it in two separate arenas the same night.
What did you say?
Hopefully they don't hold it in two separate arenas on the same night.
I don't get the reference. Was that a Raw 1000 thing?
I think it was no Raw 25. I think it was. They held it in the Manhattan Center, and they also held it in the Barclays Center.
That's crazy. You are a historian.
No.
We move on to the main event of the match, or the main event of the program, or at least the main event match of the program, of the Rascalz, Trey Miguel and Zachary Owens versus Mike Bailey and Jonathan Gresham. What did you think of this match?
Yeah, I thought it was a good match. Nice to see Wentz. I haven't seen him, in a while. Gresham, his mat work is always fun to watch. He's very crisp in terms of, he's one of the, up there, top 5, top 7, whatever, best technical wrestlers in the world. Yeah, and then obviously just athletic action. I don't have much to say about moves, but what did you think of the match?
Rascalz, to me, like, their return has been great to watch. Trey Miguel has had the run of his career as a heel. I feel like he's so much more natural as a heel than as a babyface. And he's a pretty damn good babyface too, don't get me wrong. But I feel like this is what Trey Miguel needs to kind of get to that next level, being outlined to Zachary Wentz, who, let's not forget, he was a big star in NXT.
Yeah, former NXT Tag Champ.
Former two-time NXT Tag Champ. He held that title for like a day at like the end of his career. And yeah, what were the team name?
Zachary in NXT, MSK.
MSK, yeah. I was confusing them with MK Ultra. Yeah, MSK. Great team. They were a great team, and they were a big team.
I remember their matches with the grizzled young veterans. Those were those were great.
I really expected MSK to go up to the main roster to take on the likes of the Usos and the New Day. Like, I expected them to be like main roster tag champion. I feel like that was the presentation that Nash Carter at the time got. So for him to come back to Impact, you can kind of see it in the way he's being booked. They know he's a big star now. Like, he's not like to the levels of a Trinity, for example, but like he's got name value in him. So like, yeah, he's getting pushed pretty well. Bailey and Gresham, arguably alongside Alexander, the 3 best wrestlers in the company. I feel like this match didn't go as hard as it could have. I feel like they could have like stolen the show. At the same time, I don't feel like this was the point. I keep reiterating it, but very filler episode of Impact. I feel like this match was more to move along the story, which I feel like is that's the quote of the entire show. Like, this was just to move. This show is basically, we have to move along our story. We have to get the story from plot A to plot B. So just taking this week kind of off from like the crazy moments to do that. But yeah, I mean, the story that they did move along there in the tax tournament was, at the end, Rascalz would cheat to win, beat Gresham to win.
Yeah, they stole the Outcast spray bottle.
Trey Miguel actually was doing that before the Outcasts.
Yeah, well, I mean, no matter who you give it credit to, it's not like it's original. Obviously, the NWO with their spray can. That's where it all came from. But so Trey Miguel sprays Gresham in the eyes, then pulls the trunks as well to get the pin. Gresham obviously is furious about this because he expressed concerns about the rules not being enforced, the rules being broken, the refs, basically being incompetent at their jobs. So it, played into the story.
Yeah, like usually I don't really like cheating in matches. Like I'm not a big fan of it. Like but there are certain times where I'm okay with it, and this was one of those times because it moved along the story so well. And now Gresham's gonna have heat with Bailey because he was like, "I told you, it happened to you. Now you're letting your optimism get to me. Now you're getting your optimism to have me lose matches because you weren't ready to help me when that happened. You weren't ready to stand up for me against management." So I feel like that could play along really well. This is the best. I think this is not the best work Gresham has done so far, but this is the potential to be the best work Gresham has done in Impact so far. I think they're a really good first run, in my opinion. The great matches weekly with the likes of Macklin and Bailey, and not Bailey, Sabin. But yeah, I feel like this could outshine that once he really gets the ball rolling on a good character. And I feel like if Leo Rush catches an option C, Gresham is for sure winning that title. We move on to the main event segment of the show. Very cinematic segment. It shows Eric Young, blood all over him, Cody Deaner kind of going crazy in the room. Not like screaming or anything, but like you can just see this like look in his eyes, like the big eyes like this, He walks out of the room and Eric Young spits out blood. I suppose that did not look like blood. Is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, he gets up. He goes to a motorbike, puts on glasses and the helmet. He just got stabbed, but he still cares about safety. He has like a Minecraft inventory or something where he had glasses in it. But yeah, I mean, he rides the bike and then this like voice starts to play where it was
The
like
internal monologue.
Yeah, and he calls himself an idea. He's like, I think it was a pretty good monologue for the most part. I like cinematic stuff like that. Overall, the segment, I'm gonna let you get your thoughts on first, especially as a new fan seeing this without you have knowledge of the lore but not like investment in the lore. How did you feel about it?
It was strange, I guess is the best way to put it. It's basically retconning Eric Young's death, which, I mean, it was weird. I mean, it's just like he kind of, he's coughing up blood, but then he survives, and he puts on these like goggles, and then he's just riding his bike, and he's talking about death. So I don't know. I don't know if that exactly gives a clear explanation of why he's still alive. I mean, how did he survive? I mean, coughing the blood. How did he not like pass out on the bike like midway through and be taken to like a hospital or something? I don't know. But yeah, I guess to sum it up, I guess what I said it was strange.
Yeah, I mean, they had to do something, right? Like they're not going to be like,
Yeah.
no, Eric Young, we can't bring you back. We can't sign you despite the fact you think you're a great professional wrestler because you're canon dead. They could figure something out, and they had to acknowledge it, right? They can't just have him come back from the dead and be like, yeah, he's back, and now he's a good Canadian guy. So I get it. I'm not mad at this. They had to do something. Was it wacky? Yes. Were there parts about it I didn't like? Yes. Were there parts about it I did like? Also yes. I feel like the presentation of Eric Young was quite good in the sense of it was very wacky, very cinematic, but the way he was talking about himself made himself feel important. Like how he's an idea, how he talked about how he's lived 1,000 lives, like quite philosophical in a way, because he has lived 1,000 lives in Impact, not in the literal sense, but in the sense that he's been, we had Team Canada Eric Young, we had the Don't Fire Eric Young, we've had the World Champion Eric Young, we've had the World Class Maniac Eric Young, we've had the Violent by Design Eric Young, we've had the
So, real quick, you think there's any chance of them doing, them bringing in, Killian Dane and Alexander Wolf for their independent names, Big Damo and Axel Tischer, and doing more of a sanity type deal? I mean, I think that would be cool, but because I personally enjoyed their work in NXT, though I don't know how possible that is.
I used to think that was very possible, but I don't think so for the fact that Eric Young's kind of leaning towards a face now. Like a face, like not even in the chaos like side of wrestling, where he's like just this good guy. So I don't really think it would fit. I feel like that was a
I don't know though, because Sanity were baby faces in NXT at one point. Like when they were tag team champions, they technically were faces.
yes, but they're a insane gimmick, right? Eric Young right now is a real professional wrestler type gimmick where he came back with the Team Canada gear and he came back in a Team Canada tribute match and his first match back was a real professional wrestler versus real professional wrestler match with Nick Aldis versus Eric Young, which was a great match. So I don't think we think it was fit. I was very excited for the possibility of that in a previous life, but like not for now.
Yeah, well, just in general, I guess I would like to see Big Damo and I guess Axel Tischer for those are their WWE names, Killian Dane and Alexander. Well, I'd like to see them go somewhere, rather that's MLW or Impact or I guess I don't watch NWA, but NWA, GCW, just anywhere like AEW, WWE. I really enjoyed their act, and I'd like to see them. I'd like to see them elsewhere, back in the spotlight.
They could do really well in Impact. It's like if they were to join the design, for example, and be like, Eric Young left us too, so we're here to support Cody Deaner's design or Deaner's design. When it comes to Eric Young, I feel like my official prediction for this is, well, not official prediction, but my main hope for this is Joe Doring, who we don't know the status of. He left the company, or not. He didn't leave the company, but he left the television because he got diagnosed with cancer, and we haven't heard of him since. I feel like in an ideal world, and I don't know how possible this is, so I'm not going to like speculate on it too much. But I said this last week. The best case scenario for them, if Joe Doring were to hopefully be cleared, which I pray to God he is. From what I hear, he's a great person. So prayers up to Joe Doring, what his status is. But Doring and Eric Young versus Diener and Big Con would be a fantastic direction for this, in my opinion. But we're at the end of the show. I feel like overall this was I've said it time and time again, I'm going to just reiterate what I was saying. It was a very filler episode of Impact. It was very much, hey, we have to move the plot along. It wasn't a bad episode by any means, but it was... Like, if the Eric Young thing didn't happen, I would have no idea what to put on the thumbnail, for example. Because nothing real crazy happened. There was no showcase match. There was one showcase segment, which was the last segment, but nothing else which really blew me away. I mean, the only other thing of note, I suppose, was like in a time where, especially as we're recording this, the Lufisto situation hits today, and that's brought chaos into the AEW locker room. WWE pulled Rhea's match, and Rhea never had a match in the first place. They pulled Becky and Trish's match, and Rhea never had a match. So yeah, I mean, in a time where it feels like women's wrestling is not being appreciated in America, Impact is still the leader in that category. What did you think of the show overall? I would rate it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I don't know about giving it a rating, but yeah, I thought it was a fine show. Even as someone who hasn't watched in quite a while, it definitely did feel like a more of a filler show. So yeah, I thought it was fine. As for, I guess, the question, would I watch again? I mean, honestly, probably not. And that's not because I didn't think it was like I didn't like the town or I thought it was a bad show or whatever. I just think if I had more time to watch wrestling, I think my preference would be to add New Japan to my watching habits.
Fair enough. I feel like the show wasn't the best show to bring in new fans, but overall, it's a very solid product, in my opinion. And you can catch us, or usually on Fridays, myself and Hakeem, watching the show. You can, if you want to see more of me, thank you, by the way, you can follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at Cosk151. You can follow Y2 Wrestling at Y2 Wrestling on Twitter. Thank you for joining us. If you stuck around this long, please like. And subscribe would mean the world to us. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.